All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Terence Crawford and the potential of him signing with the PBC, and very, very good news that was communicated on a podcast recently. Let's talk about that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. We are going to talk about the welterweight division and a very, very good sign as it relates to Terence Crawford and the potential of him getting the Errol Spence Jr. by signing with the PBC. Before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a regular subscriber, if you are not a regular subscriber, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of when we release more videos. Your support would be greatly, greatly appreciated. Also, if you wager on boxing, make sure you support on our betting partner, BUSR, at busr.ag/Fanon. Use the promotional code Fanon and you will get extra promotions and benefit for your wagering dollar. So let's get into this. News came out last week that from several sources that Terence Crawford was going to be in negotiations or was being offered things by the PBC. Specifically, some people, well, not specifically, but some sources said that it was a multi-fight deal. Other sources said it was a one-fight deal, right? But there had never really been anything out of the camps to verify it, just kind of silence on both sides and a lot of hope that it would take place. But now there has been, I do believe, a very good sign that these things are actually taking place, that these conversations are actually taking place, and that Terence Crawford is in position to accept a deal with the PBC. And that is on a podcast that Bernie the Boxer does on a weekly basis. I definitely would tell you, go check out the YouTube channel, Bernie the Boxer. If you're not familiar with him, he is an insider on the camp of Terence, in the camp of Terence Crawford, and somebody that has been a very reliable source for things related to the Terence Crawford camp. And he is, in a lot of ways, at least in my opinion, and I think that if you listen to him long enough, you will agree with me, is a very, very accurate reflector of the attitude of Terence Crawford himself. Now, what he said in this podcast, in the podcast that he had, was that pretty much changed the position that people in his team and the conversations that have been coming out of his team for a while. It was pretty much a 360 in the attitude as it relates to the PBC. It went from, an attitude where they were, and this is my characterization of it. And my impression of what I heard was that they were like, hey, F Al Haymon and those guys, we don't need him, and pretty much, or don't need the PBC. I won't say F Al Haymon, forgive me, even though I'm pretty sure that I kind of heard that tone and attitude coming out, where they were very unreceptive to signing with Al Haymon or any conversations about that. They would make the arguments that, that there's other fighters in the PBC that had fought with, who were signed with Al Haymon that are not getting fights. So how will we know if Terence Crawford went over there that he would be getting fights, right? And that was kind of the attitude that they had. And I'm not here to say that that's a good attitude or a bad attitude, right? Terence Crawford is somebody that has been very, very successful in his career. He's gotten many championship opportunities. He's made a lot of money with the contracts that he's had. So, and he's somebody that has put himself in a position where he more than likely never needs to work again, may never need to, by working in means may never need to fight again, because of the financial situation he and his team put him in, right? So I've never been somebody to really say that he has made bad decisions for himself, because honestly, who am I to judge a guy that, by all appearances is a multimillionaire that lives in a very frugal fashion, right? In an area of the country that does not cost a lot of money to live in. So I'm not casting any judgment on the decisions that he's made. I want to see him sign with the PBC because I am being selfish in wanting to see him matched up against the best welterweights in the world, which just happened to be with the PBC. So when Bernie the Boxer did his podcast and I saw the title, which was basically that, Terence Crawford, the PBC needs to sign Terence Crawford to a multi-fight deal for big money. And then I listened to, the communications that he was having or the points that he was making on it. I'm very, very hopeful that this is close to what Terence Crawford is actually thinking. And we really do have an opportunity to get some of these fights made, because the points that were made were very, very valid points. Like talking about Keith Thurman and talking about Gerard. He didn't necessarily mention Gerard Ennis, but all of the fights taking place, they can take place in the welterweight division if Terence Crawford is with the PBC, right? It's not just the Errol Spence Jr. fight that can be made. And let me put this out here again, because this is in the comment sections a lot. I do appreciate you guys supporting the channel and listening to the video all the way through and not just reading the title and making assumptions about what my point are. I am definitely saying I want to see Errol Spence Jr. fight Terence Crawford. Without a doubt, I would love to see that fight take place next instead of the Ugas fight. However, the Ugas fight is happening, and then the fight after that, I want to see Terence Crawford fight Errol Spence Jr. Now, with that firmly stated in this video, Terence Crawford, regardless of whether or not he beats Errol Spence Jr. or does not beat Errol Spence Jr., is going to, I hope, continue to have a boxing career, right? So he is at welterweight still. He can move to 154 pounds. If you have a very, very close fight, which I suspect Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford would be, win or lose, he's going to move on to fight other people. And who will that be? Right? Well, everybody else that you'd want to see him, whether Errol Spence Jr. and he fight next or whether he continues his career after Errol Spence Jr., are all with the PBC. And that enables, and like if you are familiar with the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats, I believe a rising tide lifts all boats. If you bring Terence Crawford into the fray in the PBC, it is going to make a bunch of fights significant. It will make Keith Thurman versus Terence Crawford. For the people that just get stuck on one thing, let me say this first. Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford is the fight that I want to be made, and is a great fight. So is Terence Crawford versus Keith Thurman. So is Terence Crawford, Danny Garcia. So is Terence Crawford, Jamel Charlo if he moves up there. Terence Crawford versus Erickson Lubin is a fight that is an interesting fight to make, that I would love to see. Just the simple fact that Terence Crawford is Terence Crawford over at the PBC with the fighters that they have enables the sport to have that many more excellent fights. And that is beside and after or before, whatever the case may be, preferably after the Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford fight. But even the fact that he's signed by the PBC makes that fight with Errol Spence Jr. more doable than it does if he is not with him, right? Errol Spence Jr. himself said, look, the fight is more doable than it was because he's not with Bob Arum. Well, if just by simply the fact that he's not with Bob Arum makes the fight more doable, then the fact that if he's actually with Al Haymon and has an agreement, a multi-fight agreement with him, makes that fight even more doable, right? But I suspect that they would probably do a fight before that to get him and build up to the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight. That's my belief about what they would want to do, not necessarily what I want to have happen. Got to be very clear for people in the comment sections that have a hard time. I think you have a hard time listening, honestly, and just jump to make comments. But it is what it is, man. It's a very, very tough situation. A situation where you got people on both sides of the issue. So it's going to be a little heat around it. However, the fact that they're talking so much about, or they're talking so affirmatively about a relationship between Terence Crawford and the PBC is a great sign that something is going to take place, and that is a better sign and gets us closer to the fight that we really want to see. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Peace.